The Jaguars lose to the Steelers Saturday night, but may have gained a look-see into what the 53 looks like. Did I say 53? Yeah, I said 53. And guess what? I got one for you, and we'll do that here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, good people? Welcome to Locked On Jaguars. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. You start here with me every day, making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars, and we are eternally grateful for you doing that. I am your host, Tony Wiggins. Been covering this team for a long time, almost a decade and a half. It's not the same old this year. We make sure you make us your first listen every single day, and you all realize that because it's your team every day. Hey, man, Jags lose another preseason game after their starters get taken out. I keep having to explain that to my wife, too. She's like, why do they keep losing? Why do they keep losing? And I'm like, baby, they take the starters out. The preseason is really for a lot of evaluation, although you kind of do want to win because somebody's keeping score, right? Right. So the Jags are now 0-3 in their preseason. We'll give you some ins and outs about the game today. But I came up with my 53. Now, this is not a predictive 53 based on what I believe the Jaguars are going to do because I'm not omniscient. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how they're viewing the practice squad. I don't know how their pro personnel side is viewing some of the areas where they may have, believe it or not, they may have a little bit of overflow or where it's guys who aren't that much of a difference that are going to make the back end of the roster. You look around the league and see if there's a way you can get compensation for guys because you don't want to just cut them and think you're going to have a chance to put them on your practice squad, especially if they're young. If those are the positions that other teams around the league are short in, you might want to be able to get a little bit of something, even if it's conditional draft choice moving forward. I know that's not Trent Baalke's strength, in my opinion. I thought Dave Caldwell used to do a real good job of that, of like getting something for nothing. But we'll just have to wait and see how they start looking at their 53. But we're going to take a quick look at it on our end today and see what we can come up with, and then just give you some hints at what they probably should be looking for themselves as the preseason gets ready to come to a close. There's only one more game left. One more preseason game and then a 2-week break before the regular season. And yeah, they're going to have some tough decisions to make in some areas and some not so tough decisions to make in other areas. Based on the game the other night against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Jaguars have some team things that they need to improve. And what that is scoring in the red zone and their efficiency when they get in the red zone. They seem to bog down a little bit once they have to deal with that extra player, which is the back line. You know, the back line always represents like the 12th man because it shortens your distance and your field up for you, and you have to do things in a smaller box. And it just seems like when they get down there, they get bogged down a little bit. Getting bogged down, in my opinion, in the red zone is a reflection more than anything. It could be timing. It could be all of that. Sometimes in the past, we thought it was guys not having the ability to separate and have big catch radiuses. I just think it's the offensive line. I just think that I always say you have to be able to run when you want to and run when you have to. And I do believe that when you get down there, you need a short down and distance situation on second down, creating an opportunity where your playbook is wide open and the other team does not know what you are going to do. I don't know how many times that they've actually done it, but you want to be in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, because that is defensive coordinators no man's land in terms of him trying to dictate or predict what it is you're going to do. I don't think they've gotten there, and I could be wrong. The statistics don't say it, and I didn't look at the splits on it, but I just don't think that they've gotten that push that they've needed in order to consistently give running backs those gaps they need in order to create those extra yards. And James Robinson coming back And, it looks like the target for him to do that is the opener. James Robinson coming back is going to allow them to do a little bit of that. Let's take a quick peek at what happened the other night in terms of the 16-15 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go with the defense. The defenses look lights out to me. They are not giving up any rushing yards. They 24 yards rushing on the ground for the Steelers the other night. And that includes quarterback scrambles, okay? You take 10 of those away off of one scramble from Mitch Trubisky, and that's 14 carries for 14 yards. It's 13 carries for 14 yards. That's the remaining. The Jaguars are stout and fast and athletic and really control those gaps along the offensive line. They've done that pretty much all preseason with the exception of one long run in Cleveland, against Cleveland here. But one thing I will tell you that I don't like, 28 for 36 for those Steeler quarterbacks. And many times those guys were in the grasp of some defensive player and they slipped and slithered themselves like a fish, on a boat that you pick up and he just slivered their little selves right on out of there a few times. Some bad angles on a couple of occasions by Jacksonville defenders. My man Caleb Vaughn, bless him, he tries and you see him moving around, everything's propelling around, and all of a sudden he has a chance to make a play and he just can't get right, and the guy just gets away from him. And he's if you watch them practice, he works extremely hard. He tries, you can tell with his body, he goes in and he does what he's into it. He's mentally into it. He's trying as hard as he can. So I'm not really one of those dudes that's going to just destroy a guy because he's not as good as he hoped he was going to be. But he is not as good as we hoped he was going to be. He's trying. And the dangerous part about that for me is he's trying so hard and it's still not working. It just might not be for him. I don't think what you're seeing from him is anything that suggests that, he's just a late bloomer, Wig. Don't worry about it. No, he's not. That's not what this is. And I feel bad for him because you get guys that waste their opportunities and don't try. That's not what Kayvon Chaisson is doing. And he has the respect of his teammates too. They cheer him on more than they cheer on anybody. And he's enthusiastic and he celebrates the team's success. He does all the things you want a guy to do except make plays. And unfortunately in NFL, you have to make plays. I will go through the defense first, and I will tell you right now, I will not try to tease you into thinking that I did not put him on my 53 because I did. I put Kayvon Chaisson on the 53. I just think teams don't give up on guys, and I think he's going to be around, and, I just do. I think he's going to be there, and maybe he can even help on special teams, and they'll just keep trying because they probably like me. They probably like his effort, and they probably think that at some point that light will go on. Maybe. But I'm going to do the defense first because I know you're waiting with bated breath to hear who I think is on the T-Wig of the Locked On Jaguars 53-man roster. Like I say, this is not, and I repeat, this is not a predictive Locked On Jag. This is not a predict. This is not what I think they're going to do because it's very, very close. Because what I think they're going to do might look a little bit different because they have different reasons, and plus they're privy to information from a pro personnel side that obviously I'm not, and I will admit that. So I know I'm an expert, but in this case, I'm not going to try to sound like an expert when I really shouldn't be knowing certain things. And I'm going to admit to you that I don't know. So basically, I'm an expert that's admitting that I'm not an expert, but I am an expert because I'm admitting that I'm not an expert. And I'm not going to get on this podcast and talk about things that I should not be knowing about when it comes to what they're thinking with their last 5 or 6 people. So that's why I tell you that this is not, I hope y'all caught all that. That's why I tell you this is not a predictive, but more or less, this is what would Wig do, okay? Should I make bracelets that says what would Wig do? WWWD. Can I do that? Okay, I might. I'll think about it. Let me think about it while we get ready for segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. And that segment is going to come after I tell you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews of news of every league. All of them are year-round now, even when they're not playing games, including Major League Baseball, who making a run for the pennant, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. I got to go in there and look out and find out why I saw a friend of mine say that he is done with the Mets. I don't know what the Mets got going on, but if you want to find out what they got going on, go to BetOnline because it continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And you all start here with me every day on Locked On Jaguars because it's your team every day, and we thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to us and following us on all of the platforms wherever you get your podcasts, and reminding you we are free on those platforms. All right, let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. They call him the Turk. How about this? We're going to call me the Jive Turkey. The Jive Turkey, T-Wig, is going to make some cuts, brother. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be the Turk. I'm going to be the Jive Turkey. Because some of y'all might think that I'm a Jive Turkey after you hear who I think the Jaguars would keep if I was in personnel. Some of these are super, super easy, so I'm going to give it to you by numbers. Defensive linemen, that means people who put their hand on the ground on first down, not guys in the lightning package, not guys that do multiple things, people who will put their hand in the ground on first down. We're going to keep Devon Hamilton, Foy, Folo Runzo, Fadu Kazi, and Roy Robinson Harris as your starters. Your backups will be Jay Tufele, backing up at nose guard, with Adam Gotsis, or Gotsis. I'm going to make sure I say his name right. Adam Gotsis and DeJuan Smoot and Arden Key. Now, who's going to go in for who? Smoot and Key will be in there on those nickel pass rushers. You can believe that. But those are the 7 guys that I believe the Jaguars keep. I thought a lot about Jeremiah Ledbetter. I really, really did, because he's another big body. And remember, they moved on from Malcolm Brown, and there's some rumors that they might add in Damakong Suh or whoever. We'll see. But as of today, with the way that the roster stands, those are the 7 down linemen that I am going with. I'm going to keep 4 outside linebackers. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to keep 4 outside linebackers. And here's the key. I'm going to keep 4 outside linebackers, and I say guys that line up on first down, these are the people that I'm going to keep. And the reason why I differentiate between first, second, and third down, and you're going to hear why in just a second, I'm talking about their base defense. So you make your roster based up on your base defense, and then you move around parts based on guys that are specialists or guys that are dual certified, right? So the reason I'm going to keep, of course, Travon Walker and Josh Allen is because they're the 2 best players on the defense and 2 of the 3 best players on the team. Outside, I'm going to keep Jamir Jones, number 40. I think Jamir Jones has really, really, really made a name for himself, right? And really, really, because someone in the know told me this, that they really like Deshaun Dixon at 47, but I did not keep him because of what we talked about in segment 1. I'm keeping Caleb Von Chasen. Yeah, I am. And this really comes from not the clips and not me saying can't get right or that little skip and hop thing he was doing that everybody told me is really a standard move. And they said Yannick Ngakoue did it all the time. Not him missing tackles. The effort, the interaction, and the way that they coach him and the way that he responds to it in practice and the way that his teammates respond, they're really, really cheering for him. And one of the lessons in life I learned is you'll know when people stop caring about you is when they stop coaching you or talking to you. I've never seen that happen. So in all the practices I've been about 80% of them this year. And it's not like before where we had to be a long ways away. We are standing right there to the point where they instruct players, you hear it. And by the way, shout out to Jags PR and the new staff for allowing us to have that access. So I'm going to keep Caleb on. You say only 4. Why only 4, Wig? Well, because with Arden Key and DeJuan Smoot, you have 2 guys that are dual certified who could step in at the drop of a dime and stand up and play the stand-up role as a defensive end or a pass rusher. So that's why those 2 guys are so important as well, because not only are they likely the nickel guys, and this depends on if the offense can get ahead, they'll be the nickel guys, but they can also, remember, they're dual certified, man. They're the bottle opener and the switchblade. They can stand up, sit down, and they give you a lot of versatility. Not for long stretches, but in a pinch. If somebody twists their ankle and has to miss the rest of the game or goes in a concussion protocol, and then the backup gets tired, yeah, they can go in there and relieve the backup for a little while, or they just change the defense to a base 4. So that's what I'm going to do with the front 7. We're going to get to the secondary here before we hit to segment 3. This is a 5-starter situation, right? It's a little bit different than with a base defense that's a 4-3, because you can turn that into a 4-2-5 really quick just by taking out a linebacker, right? Or sometimes taking out a nose guard and moving one of your guys down like Calais used to do. With a 3-4, you got 7 guys up front, so you're only going to have 4 guys in the back. So you got to get to nickel really, really quick. You got to get out of your base defense, and it really, really does mean that Darius Williams, who you paid all that money, if he's not going to start outside, once he gets healthy, and this is assuming he's going to be healthy, that he goes into a role really, really fast and really, really quick, where he really has to get on the field. And then that means that somebody has to come out. I think when they do that, the guy that's going to come out is probably Foloronzo, Fadukazi. He'll probably be they'll remove a lineman before they remove an inside linebacker, because I think the inside linebackers are guys that go side to side and flow to the ball, and they're people that they want on the field. And when that happens, one or two of those guys will go down and put their hand on the ground. And this is the situation where I think you see that package where maybe 2 guys come out, or maybe even 3. But what you see is you'll see Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, and then either Roy Robinson Harris or Arden Key and DeJuan Smoot. So that's how you get that package on the field all at once. And that's probably in passing situations or when the Jaguars are trying to really get the ball back. So we're going to go with Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, and Shaq Griffin. They're your 3 corners. They're your first 3. They're your 2 starters and your nickel. Okay? The 2 safeties is Andre Cisco and Rayshawn Jenkins, of course. Both have had great camps. Now let's get to the backups. I kept 5 corners: Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, Shaquille Griffin, Monteric Brown, and Chris Claybrooks. Those are the 5 that I kept. So that means Trey Herndon's missing. Xavier Crawford, who's practiced well and played a lot, is missing. Rookie named Gregory Jr. is missing. You can't keep everybody. And Chris Claybrooks, in my opinion, cemented himself with his training camp and with his effort in the preseason. That's the guy, along with Monteric Brown, that made a push and started to practice well, that makes you go, well, some of these names we know won't be here. And this is where these other guys that I'm mentioning, this is where it's not a flat-out cut, and maybe they don't qualify for the practice squad. This is where you look around the league with your personnel department and say, hey, man, look at what we got here. You're a little short at the corner position. How about sending us a 5th or 6th, conditional draft pick, and you got you a ready-made player who's played minutes in the NFL. At the safety position, of course, I started with Andre Cisco and Rayshawn Jenkins. I kept 5. I kept Dewey Wingard, Andrew Wingard, no matter how much y'all try to cut him, and me too. You got to honor what you saw him do, and what you saw him do is go out and practice lights out and earn his keep. Daniel Thomas, Another player, hard hitting, Daniel Thomas. I think Daniel Thomas makes this team. And the fifth, while it was a little bit hard, it wasn't really that hard because he's a special teams ace, and everybody knows it is Rudy Ford. So Rudy Ford, who can also double down in that slot some. So there your five. That's your entire defense. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, the kicker and the place kicker is Cook and Santoso. You know who the returner is. He's going to be one of the wide receivers. I kept 7. Jamal Agnew is one of them. And I'll tell you guys all about that in just a second. I have to let you know, though, and you guys have to pay attention to this, because even for me, it is fantasy draft week. I have been making mock drafts, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen every day. It's fantasy draft week on the Locked On Podcast Network. However you play, experts from Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty Football will bring you daily top 10 lists to get you ready for the season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. That's right. I have another special message for you, and it's very, very important that you pay attention, man. You gotta drive sober, okay? You're hanging out with some friends and putting a few back at your fantasy drafts. A few become a few too many. And sometimes we don't recognize that. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think about calling for a ride, but then you're like, nah, I got this, man. I'm a veteran. I've done this so many times. You think it's no big deal. What's the odds you get pulled over anyway? And even so, what can happen that's worse than that? Your insurance goes up, you go to jail, you could possibly lose your job, disgrace your family, more or less hurt someone or even kill someone, all because you took that chance. Everyone knows about the risks of drunk driving, and the results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. Drive sober, or get pulled over. If you don't think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, then think again. If that's what you think, you're not. You will be impaired. Play it safe. Plan ahead. Plan ahead before you leave the house, before you drink one beer or one shot. Make sure you have yourself covered and that you don't put other people in danger. All right, man, we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Podcasts, Locked On Jaguars, Locked On NFL, all of that stuff. But you guys are here because of the Jaguars, and I'm giving you the 53. I know somebody's going to check my math here, but I've done it 3 or 4 times. It's 53 people. We thank you for making us your first listener and trusting us with your Jaguars information on a daily basis. I saved the offense for last because, well, it should be pretty easy. And I know all of the suspense was in the defense, but I'm sure there's some places you guys might disagree. Let's start with quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, of course. All those people making noise about Trevor Lawrence and talking about the preseason, and don't worry. This is where you want to see him try stuff and miss stuff. So what he's doing, I think he's trying stuff to see what he can get away with and what he can't, under the duress of playing against different players every single week and not really game planning for that team. So just hang tight. He'll be all right. CJ Beathard is his backup. That is what it is. I say they only keep 2. Of course, they can have an emergency quarterback on the roster, but on the active 53, those are the 2. I think they keep 3 running backs, especially if they target James Robinson coming back the first week. It's going to be J-Rob, it's going to be ETN1, and it's going to be Snoop Connor. If they keep Raquel Armstead, it's because James Robinson isn't quite healthy, or it means they sacrificed a player at another position, and that could be wide receiver. So we'll talk about that too. So if you move a wide receiver along because you have Jamal Agnew, who can play wide receiver, running back, and kick returner, I'm thinking they're going to go with less running backs. If they don't, then I can tell you the player that I have that won't be on the team. Let's do the wide receiver since I'm already doing that. We know Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, and Zay Jones are the 3 starters in 3 wide receiver sets. So let's just give you 3 backups in those wide receiver sets. Laquan Treadwell, I believe, has done enough to make this team. He's also their big physical target. I think they're going to hang on to Laviska Shenault. Unless they get a trade offer for him, I think Laviska Shenault is here. But he is a guy that I wouldn't mind, if they decided that they could get something for him and move on, it would not surprise me. Tim Jones, I think Tim Jones gonna make this team, man. And so that's the guy right there. When I was talking about Raquel Armstead, it's Tim Jones. So Tim Jones, I think, has done more than Cotton. He's done more than a lot of other guys to have an opportunity to make this club, and I think he does it even more than the rookie Austin, who they'll probably try to bring back to the practice squad. And Jamal Agnew's number 7. But the key with Jamal Agnew is he's number 7, but he's also that other little running back, and he's that gadget guy. So his position is solidified. But that's the way I decided to go. So it's either Rock Armstead or Tim Jones, in my opinion. That's what I would do. It depends on how they look at it. With the tight end position, they're going to keep 4. No surprise. Chris Manhertz and Ingram are the starters in the 2 tight end sets. And Ingram he also helps you with the wide receivers. So if there's an argument against keeping that many wide receivers, it's because you can use Evan Ingram as that pseudo wideout. Farrell and Arnold, I think, are the other 2 tight ends. They really value the tight end in this system. So yeah, we're going with Luke Farrell and Dan Arnold, and no more. That's it. No more tight ends. All right, the offensive line, I initially kept 10. I broke that back down to 9 because I think they're going to run some guys on the practice squad. But I do have a little bit of a shocker. Not in the starting lineup. I think it's Cam Robinson. I think Ben Bartz is going to get the nod over Tyler Shatley because I just do. I think they're bigger and stronger with him in there. I think he's going to get the nod if he's healthy. Luke Fortner, Brandon Sheriff, of course. Jawan Taylor will win the right tackle position, and Walker Little will be your swing tackle. Casey McDermott at center. Tyler Shatley at center guard or whatever, interior lineman. And I went with, and this is because someone told me, and he knows who he is, they really like this guy. They just want him to be healthy. I went with Badara Traore and said that they said goodbye to Will Richardson. So there you go. Those are the 25 offensive guys that I have to go along with the 28 people that I put on the 53, 26 defenders and 2 special teamers. We'll see how it turns out, man. That's my group. I don't know if they'll do the same thing, but I hope you enjoyed that. We'll actually just have some practice reports and give you a state of the team address tomorrow a little bit based on the health of guys. And then I'm going to, instead of talking about it today, as to not cram the information, I'm going to go over this tomorrow with where do they need to go out and get help and where can they get it? Because just like we may have an abundance of back-end defensive backs, some other teams may have an abundance of back-end other things, and we'll see if we can go around the league and scour the league a little bit to see if we can figure out where the Jaguars and identify where they need help and where they could possibly get it. But until then, you guys take care of each other and make sure you don't forget to tune in to Locked On Jaguars on every single platform where you get your podcast. And understand this: we're free on all podcasts, and we appreciate you making us your first listen because we are your team every day.